In a land of myth and a time of magic, the destiny of a great kingdom rests on the shoulders of a young boy. His name, Merlin.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 5 of the weekly retrospective with Merlin. As you guys probably noticed, I'm not wearing my flannel shirt right now. It's just that I had a long ass day at work. I'm getting ready to film a few more videos for my vlog channel, which will probably be either in the description below or you can find it on my main page. I'm not entirely sure right now, but let's get started with this video, which is of my favorite episode within Merlin's first series, called Lancelot. Now, of course, we had to go through the title sequence before we get started on the main plot. So, like how my whole thing goes, we have the first title opening sequence, which then the episode opens up to Merlin in a field somewhere in the pastures of Camelot picking mushrooms. I know it's mushrooms because I literally had to rewind that scene 7 times over the past several years to find out what he was picking in that field. And while he's doing that, he's all at peace and merriment, like Persephone before she met her husband Hades, when all of a sudden, the call of a mighty griffin roars through the land. Well, actually, we're not supposed to know it's a griffin, but it's got the body of a lion, the head of an eagle with wings. It's a griffin. It's a griffin. So, Merlin is pretty much chased after by a griffin, which we've now established exists in the universe of the show. And he's just running and running. He trips over because he needs to trip in order to introduce the titular character of the episode, Lancelot, trying to valiantly fight the griffin, but his sword suspiciously breaks on its skin. I wonder why. So, after his sword is broken, he and Merlin are like, fuck this, let's run! Running from the CGI thing that is obviously faking all things reality! So they hide behind a tree until the CGI monster decides to fly off into the distance to do God knows what. Where then, before we enter into the opening sequence, Merlin sees that Lancelot is suspiciously wounded from the attack by the griffin. And then we get the opening sequence, which then we open up to Gaius treating Lancelot, only to tell the audience it's just a superficial wound, sorry Mike, superficial wound and a slight fever that will subside after one night. So that drama was kind of pointless, although it did help us with Lancelot meeting Merlin. But enough about Lancelot meeting all that kind of stuff. We have to experience more world building, as Uther and Arthur see one of the neighboring villages in their kingdom somehow sieged and attacked by the griffin, which apparently has been rumored to attack a lot of different villages around Camelot, which is definitely expanding on the whole world building thing about how big Camelot is for people that don't know the original lore, since Camelot is basically what Great Britain is in size, but only doubled that during its decade, according to some people that research the lore. It kind of differs on whoever's telling the story, obviously. But to establish that there are a lot of neighboring villages within Camelot does get a grander picture for someone that wants to do a whole geography map of the universe. But enough about world building. We're just going to go back into the details about how apparently Arthur heard rumors about the griffin attacking various different villages in their lands, and now Uther, who probably has the one smart thing he has to say about himself in the show, decides, you know what, we should have the guards on full alert in every village because we do not want to have this happen to anyone else at all. So I'm pretty much like, okay, we have Uther's one smart moment. Now to set the timer for when he does something stupid. Okay, timer is set. So then we have to cut from that moment to Lancelot, who tells Merlin his biggest dream, to become a knight of Camelot and fight for all those that fear tyranny. Oh, Lancelot, soon, not this season, but soon, you will get your your deepest desire granted, sure enough. Anywho, Merlin pretty much feels very confident about Lancelot's dream and even says that from seeing him in combat, he could best Arthur. If there was a clip right now, it would probably be of that whole D's nuts guy with that, ha! Got him! But I don't feel like I'm doing that kind of bullshit, so let's just say that shots were fired. Shots were definitely fired on that son. We need to set some burn ointment on Arthur immediately. So after giving that whole declaration, I'm apparently doing gibberish because it's non-scripted, except for a couple of fucking notes on a phone. Merlin decides to set out and talk to Arthur. While Arthur is setting a test for an unknown extra while stroking his own ego about being an unstoppable ultimate killing machine. Very classy from the guy that has to be saved by a magician in every single episode, and even stuff off screen. Yeah, you're very unstoppable when you have someone with magic that can kick your ass 983 million different ways. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, Arthur. So, he decides to set up the extra for one test, apparently after several months off screen of training him to be a knight, of lasting 1 minute in combat with Arthur. And apparently we also learned the extra's name in this episode of Grimond, second son of Wessex, which would definitely be in the real-life equivalent of one of the neighboring cities within Britain, I believe. I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in Europe, so a lot of my memories of stuff is super vague. Anyway, one short fight scene later that only lasted maybe 28 to 36 seconds. Grimond is brought down from a usage of both one-handed sword fighting and street fighting pugilism, which for those of you guys that don't really know a lot about how swordplay and street fight working as a combo really does deliver you guys a lot more leeway into how to take down your opponent like that. Like, you guys have seen the knife for me that I've taken from one of my ex-girlfriends from a gift or something. If I were to use that into a real-life fight again, since I've pretty much taken the whole pacifist route against fighting, because I'm deemed too dangerous, I could still have my free hand with the knife out, but while you're distracted with the knife, I can close into you for close quarters combat to not only wind you, but also go in for a killing blow. Just to give you guys a small little depiction about why that is so intricate into why you should be focused on why Arthur's fighting style is so unique and clever, which is probably the only thing clever about the dick. So, enough backstory. Grimond fails the test, making, according to Arthur, the third failure for knighthood within all of Camelot. So, when he's saying, man, I wish we get some good knights in this bitch, Merlin's just like, I know someone who could really do a great job. And can you guys guess what Arthur said? You guys can pause the video and just make your own assumption. You done? You good? Okay. Arthur, being the classy fellow that he is, decides to do his natural thing of being a dick. And, be an asshole. Before Merlin is just like, no, I know a guy that is worthy of it. He saved my life. And then Arthur becomes a dick again. But after hearing a few more things from Merlin, he's just like, okay, just make sure he brings his seal of nobility. Which we then have to bring in another law within the universe, which is Uther Pendragon's Code of Camelot, which says, and I quote from how it runs through the first 3 seasons at least for Merlin, that is, no one man can join the Knights of Camelot if they are not of royal blood. Which is kind of classist and sort of fucked up because it's Uther's ideal that only nobles can save other people, which is a very blanket statement for a very closed-minded individual that does not know how well someone that is of common level could best a noble if given the chance. But we do not have time to go into the idiocy that is Uther. That is like at the end of this weekly retrospective where we do a full-on review of Merlin, so that you guys have everything delved into. So, after I pretty much explained to you guys that the Knights of Camelot code, Merlin decides to run back to Lancelot after saying to Arthur that he is noble, which is a lie, because after he tells Arthur this, he finds out from Lancelot a few seconds later that he isn't noble. He is as common as Merlin and Gaius, if not more common. So, during that time, we have to establish why Uther established the whole Code of Camelot. Because it's only a families that he knows have kissed his ass, and he deems are qualified enough to save the kingdom from danger. Oh, Uther, I cannot wait until you are no longer king, because when you are gone and or dead, that is when the good things happen to the show. Anywho, Merlin and Lancelot are understandably discouraged from hearing that, so we then have to cut into why Lancelot wants to be a knight. And the backstory we hear from Lancelot's character is a very sad one. It is the sad story of a sole survivor of a slaughtered family that, after he saw his entire family being killed as a child, vowed to never be powerless in the face of a tyrant and devoted his entire life from a young boy to the young adult that he is now, just perfecting his craft with the sword. Which is very inspiring and quite a good duality towards the pompousness that is Arthur. Now, before we get into that, allow me to establish why I say this. When it comes to the ideal of Arthur and Lancelot, a lot of people want to go back into the lore of just the knight and the king. But Merlin does something a little bit differently. Arthur himself is very pompous, very egotistical, and always trying to inflate his own ego without ever trying to understand the common man, unless it's through interactions with Merlin, Gwen, Morgana, and other sort of instances where he actually does have his good side show when it should be more prevalent. Now for Lancelot, it's a whole different story. From a man that literally grew up with no family watching him after they were killed, to having to salvage himself from the ground up, to then travel all around the lands to teach himself to be a greater person with stronger ideals, and even being a gentleman to those of his own class and those higher than him in order to become a better idealistic and gentleman, is something that you see as a good duality towards why Arthur and Lancelot are always of two similar sides. They cannot be in the same continuity without having to be somewhat different from each other because of those different ideals that are placed together for them. When you place them together, you have the perfect coin about what is and what isn't for the sword aspect of the sword and sorcery trope. But we'll dive into that after this season is over. Anywho, from hearing the backstory, Merlin decides that he promises to get Lancelot a shot at being a knight no matter what the cost. So, in another bit of world building, we have Merlin going into the sacred library of all of Camelot, which is also of the genealogist room, who I comically called Gandalf the Librarian. Because if you watch the episode, it kind of looks like Dumbledore and Gandalf got into a serious relationship and adopted a child that has both their features. So I called him Gandalf the Librarian. Anywho, with Gandalf the librarian just pretty much skulking around, Merlin takes the genealogy book that he saw, which, fun fact, is a book that is titled The Ancient Families of Britain. Which, if you guys know Arthurian lore, Camelot and Britain have more of a blood-soaked history. At least from the original text before it was kind of cleaned up by sort of neo-Arthurian lore masters that kind of brought into the ones that we know today. Because original storytellers that told the legends of Camelot were more of a bloodlust sort of thing between Camelot and Britain. But that's a discussion for an entirely different video that I'm sure you guys will find more fascinating away from the show. Anywho, while Merlin is going through, he takes out a piece of paper when he finds the perfect seal that he believes will get Lancelot a shot, where he uses his magic to create an incredible forgery where Lancelot is now called the 5th son of Lord Eldric of Northumbria. Well, it's definitely a great forgery spell for Merlin if he wants to make fake IDs for kids if he's immortal. I'm just saying. So, before he ends up getting caught by Gandalf the Librarian for using magic in public, which at this point Merlin should have been caught a billion different times for using magic in public, just saying, he rolls out and decides to give the fake seal to Lancelot. And Lancelot, being himself, is just like, I cannot do this the fake way. I appreciate what you're doing, Merlin, but it's just not me. I don't like lying. I like doing things honorably. But Merlin is just like, man, you deserve this shot. You are a great person. You have awesome ideals. You're what Camelot needs. And damn Uther's rules. And honestly, from everyone watching the show, you would agree with Merlin. Damn the rules. Lancelot deserves a shot at being a Knight of Camelot. But again, for those of you that watch the show, you already know that is not going to be a huge problem. Just saying. So afterwards, Lancelot and Merlin, after that empowering speech, go to Gwen to get fitted for a suit of armor and a slight bit of noble rags to pass Lancelot off as a gentleman and a knight at the same time. But while this is happening, Lancelot and Gwen sort of have some subtle sparks going on between them to set up their ship of Gwen x Lancelot. Oh, original continuity towards the source material. Oh, how I've missed you. Anywho, after seeing that brief moment that made my heart flutter with the possibility that will never be, Lancelot and Merlin are walking away when Lancelot asks one of the big questions that a lot of shippers are wondering. Are Merlin and Gwen dating off screen? Like, not off screen as in the actors themselves, like off screen as the characters, obviously. Like anyone knows if that man was ever gonna find a girl that's, perfect for him. Just saying, he's an actor now. He gets all the tang he wants from fans. I kid. I'm just trying to be jokey. Anywho, Merlin decides to pretty much tell us straightforward, he ain't dating it. They just friends. 'Cause, Merlin's oblivious to romantic ties that are right in front of him, since we all know Gwen and Merlin are not going to be a thing. But, bye shipper moment. Hope you guys enjoy being crushed by the Gwen x Lancelot ships. Anywho, the following day, Lancelot and Arthur officially meet. And as soon as Lancelot is giving him his seal to pass himself off as a nobleman, here is what Arthur decides to do. He decides to take the seal from Lancelot, but with his free hand, slaps him across the face. Now, I know I'm gonna sound really weird about this, but allow me to explain. I grew up from different families that have instilled in me to never slap a man across the face unless you want to die. Not in the next few minutes, not in the next few seconds, but on the spot. If you're going to slap a man, you better be prepared to die on the spot. Now, the reason I'm pretty much bringing this up is that Arthur makes himself into an asshole all the time in the series for Series 1. I understand this. A lot of fans understand this, and we pretty much accept him later on in the show because he does grow into a better character. But the problem is how he decided to condone himself towards others, where he felt the need to openly slap another individual across the face to whatever means for himself. Because you don't openly slap someone across the face to prove anything except that you're an asshole. Not just an ungrateful asshole, not just an egotistic asshole, just a pure-blown, no redeemable quality, should be killed where they stand at that very moment asshole. And yet we're supposed to just let that pass over like nothing happened. Anywho, from that point, Arthur tries to discourage Lancelot by saying that he should try out later, but Lancelot still perseveres, so Arthur is saying that he should start off by cleaning the horse stables, and then having people laugh, while Merlin and Gwen are in his corner just like, "You got this, buddy. You can deal with all the shit being thrown your way." Not literally, of course. So, following this moment, we have a slight little scene with Gaius and Merlin, where Gaius believes that Merlin is upset and wants to try and cheer him up, but Merlin is pretty much like, I'm okay. I'm understanding what's going on. And originally, Gaius thinks that he's handling everything maturely. But after seeing a manure-covered Lancelot stroll into their house, because, Lancelot's living with them throughout the episode, kind of an awesome feel to have two badasses living with an OG. So, Gaius decides to get the truth from Merlin, where he finally hears the truth that Lancelot is using a forgery to become a knight. Which leads us to the ever so popular debate on the rules of Camelot and the use of Merlin's magic. Because I've honestly heard all the debates so many times that I've decided to be like, skip, not even gonna go into the details of it. However, this time, Merlin justifies his actions honestly for helping Lancelot, which is basically to repay his debt of saving his life by trying to make sure that he fulfills his own dream, which effectively leaves Gaius speechless. And for good reason too, but we'll go into that later. So after an unstated amount of time, which seriously, the show really needs to establish how much time has passed during certain slow moments where we don't feel like, okay, it's been 7 days. Like, wait, what? What? We just saw it just being afternoon just a few seconds ago. What is time in the show? And so, several days later, we're assuming, Arthur decides to give Lancelot a combat trial by saying, I want you to kill me. Which automatically I was thinking to myself, well, allow me to try. Here is a gun. Here is a knife. I'm gonna go Dante on your ass and make sure I'm the new Prince of Camelot, you piece of shit. But no. They go into a full-on brawl where, after Lancelot was apparently sharpening weapons or whatever, they are fighting broomstick to broomstick pretty equally, which does establish that Lancelot and Arthur are really good combative people towards one another, even though Lancelot's whole two-handed sword style against Arthur's one-handed / street pugilistic style don't mesh well. I would go into why, but I'm already wasting enough time giving you guys backstory on things. So, Arthur then says that after said test, Lancelot has qualified for basic training. But that moment is short-lived when the bell tolls as wounded refugees enter Camelot, saying that they were attacked by the Griffin. So, from that moment, we have to cut to Uther and Arthur analyzing the Griffin's movements as they prepare for the next attack, because apparently from attacking certain villages within the valley of Camelot, yes, we have established that there is a valley within Camelot, it is heading towards them from the west, which means that there are literally several different villages in each direction of the compass, which is pretty interesting to note for a lot of people that want to have a geography of where they are within Camelot's own universe. So, with Arthur's whole night crew on hand, they're pretty much preparing to face the Great Griffin, while Gaius is in his study trying to analyze what the creature is, even though the audience probably figured out what the creature is by now. Either due to reading a lot of mythology, watching Harry Potter a lot, or just piecing together something odd from their own mental space that it is a griffin. That it is a griffin. Just saying. So, that's like gonna be the catchphrase for this entire episode. Just saying. So, when the griffin comes into the city, Arthur and his goon squad just like, alright, let's roll up! Let's show this fool how we get down in Camelot! I don't know why I'm making them sound ghetto, but screw it! They being goons! Let them be goons in ghetto! So they try to square up with the Griffin. I'm already just going to establish that when they're fighting as a group, they're ghetto. They are trying to square up with the Griffin, but the Griffin pretty much is like, nah, bitch. So, and as soon as they're trying to attack him head on, the weapons are just useless, breaking against him, just like, oh, that's cute. They brought the little weapons. Oh, yeah, and I got some sick talons. Yeah! And right there, where he just is flying away after Arthur by somehow waving fire in front of his face, just like, fire! My one weakness must fly away even though I'm winning. So, after that fight, Uther pretty much reprimands Arthur for his current nights against a creature they know nothing about or have no idea what its weakness is. So you're very intelligent, Uther, for blaming your son for not having a successful time with this monster you know clearly zero shit about.